Sandman Volume 3 Dream Country, written by Neil Gaiman, art by Kelley Jones, Malcolm Jones III, Charles Vess, and Colleen Doran. Alright, before I dive into Sandman Dream Country, I just want to announce that I'm going to be taking a little hiatus from Sandman, about a week or two, because I want to make sure I cover another particular comic now. So the next video I'm going to be doing will be on Batman The Long Halloween. Now, this is an all-time classic Batman story. If you're reading the top Batman books, this one would definitely be top 10. It's set in Batman's early days, and we have the origin of Harvey Dent, as well as various other characters in the story. Now, the reason I'm covering it now is because on June 22nd, there's going to be an animated movie adaptation of Batman The Long Halloween, so I just want to make sure I cover it now before that movie comes out, because now is the time to do it. But then after that, I will be returning to Sandman. Okay, Sandman Dream Country in this video is a very interesting volume. It is just composed of 4 issues, 4 short stories. The first one involves a Greek muse and a writer abusing the muse so he can write great work. The second issue has to deal with cats ruling the world. Cats ruling the world. It's a very, very trippy issue, very interesting. There's lots to analyze and figure out what Neil Gaiman is trying to tell us through that issue. That's going to be fascinating. The next issue has to deal with Shakespeare. So we saw Shakespeare last volume. Morpheus and him were talking. Well, now we're going to have the follow-up of that. And then the final issue in this volume has to do with this obscure DC character named Element Girl. And we see her living this lonely existence. And we'll see what happens with her. All right, let's dive into it. Sandman Volume 3, Dream Country. Issue 17, Calliope. The year is 1986. This is 2 years before Morpheus was freed from captivity, which we saw him in Volume 1. We see a man named Richard Maddock. He is a writer. He has only written 1 good book, and he is struggling to write his second. He has been working on this second book for a long time now, and it is 9 months overdue. He is basically in breach of his contract, and he is desperate to get past this writer's block. Richard is meeting with a doctor named Felix Garrison. Richard gets this Felix to give him something called a trichobezoar, which is essentially like a disgusting hairball formed from the ingestion of hair found in someone's gastrointestinal system. This particular hairball came from a young woman who had been chewing her hair for years, and the doctor had to remove it from the woman, and now he is giving it away to this Richard Maddock. So Richard, now with this hairball, he travels across town to visit this man named Erasmus Fry. Erasmus Fry is an old man who used to be a very popular writer, but now he is content to just retire in old age. The two of them are here to make an exchange. Erasmus wants this hairball thing. He seems to believe it has some sort of healing properties as a new age medicine or something. So Richard gives him it, and in exchange, Erasmus leads Richard into another room in his house. And inside this room is a naked woman named Calliope. She has been locked up in this room in this house for many, many years. Now this Calliope, she is actually straight out of Greek mythology. She is one of the 9 muses born of Zeus, the king of the gods. Erasmus captured her 60 years ago in 1927 when he was in Greece. Calliope was bathing in a spring, and he bound her with some sorcerer's garlic and performed certain rituals. And by doing so, she was bound to him. So then Erasmus had to sneak her back to his home in England, and Calliope has been kept here in his house ever since. Calliope, she is a great muse. So Erasmus says that some used to try to woo her kind, but he's found forcing himself on her to be most effective. With her as his muse over the years, Erasmus has created great novels, poems, and plays, and they have given him great fame, glory, and money, but he's old now and he doesn't have many years left, and he doesn't really need her anymore, so he is trading her to this Richard. Calliope is upset. Erasmus promised her he would free her before he died, but Erasmus tells her, "Writers are liars, my dear. Surely you have realized that by now." Richard leaves with this Calliope woman and brings her back to his home, and he locked her up in the topmost room of his house. Eventually, he raped her per Erasmus's instructions. Then Richard went to his writing room and sat. He thought that maybe this Erasmus cheated him, that this girl would do nothing for him. But surely enough, something shifted inside his head and he wrote. And after having writer's block for so many months, he was finally able to start writing his second novel, and it was going to be great. Calliope, trapped in her bedroom, she called for help from the trinity of Greek muses, Iode, Mimi, and Melite. The three women appear. They are essentially another version of the three witches that have been popping up throughout the series so far. Calliope asks them for their help. They say to her, though, that they cannot help her, that she is lawfully bound to this man now. Calliope asks them, "Is there nothing you can do?" The three women discuss, and they think that perhaps the Endless can help. One of the women reveals that Calliope and Morpheus, whom they refer to as Oniros, which is Morpheus's Greek name, it's Greek for dreams. Well, Morpheus, or Oniros, and this Calliope had a romantic relationship a long time ago. And they even had a son, but the son is dead now. It's a little bit ambiguous exactly what happened, but they refer to the son as the boy who went to Hades for his lady love and died in Thrace, torn apart by the Sisters of the Frenzy for his sacrilege. Morpheus' son will be a plot point in future volumes. So Calliope and Morpheus' relationship ended badly, but Morpheus, he could help her out of this situation if he wanted to. Unfortunately, though, it is 1986 right now, and Morpheus would not be freed for another few years. So the three women tell Calliope that Morpheus is being held captive himself. So there is nothing the ladies can do for Calliope for now. And they leave. Richard, he enters the room and he is pleased with how his writing work is going, and he decides to rape Calliope again so he can write some more great work. Over the next few years, Richard has many career milestones. His new book is a ginormous hit. In an amusing conversation, a female fan tells Richard that she loves a certain female character in his recent book, and how there aren't enough strong women in fiction. And Richard replies, "Actually, I do tend to regard myself as a feminist writer," which is of course an arrogant thing for him to say as someone who is keeping a female locked up in his house. So Richard, he is becoming a big shot. He fires his agent and gets an even bigger agent. He decides to write a play. He writes a screenplay, and he decides, you know what? He wants to direct the movie of the screenplay as well. And the movie is so good it gets nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. It is now 1990. Morpheus has escaped from his captivity for a while now, and he has finally come to visit this Calliope. Calliope is still being held in Richard's house. Calliope, she begs Morpheus for him to help her, even though their relationship is not the best, she says. "By the love I once had for you, by whatever you felt, please, make him give me my freedom." We see Richard, he is on a talk show, and he finds out that this Erasmus Fry, the man that sold him Calliope, died a summer ago. He poisoned himself. That night, Morpheus visits Richard in his dreams. Morpheus tells Richard to let Calliope go, free her. Richard refuses. He says he wouldn't be able to write. He wouldn't be able to have ideas without her. He can't let her go, not now. Maybe in a year or so? Morpheus says that Richard disgusts him. Morpheus tells Richard, "You want ideas? You want stories? Then ideas you will have, ideas in abundance." Richard, later on, when he wakes up, his mind starts getting overwhelmed with all of these ideas. Morpheus is just overloading him with ideas. Richard, he can't concentrate on any one thing because another idea would just pop into his head before he even had time to acknowledge the last. Richard, he would try to get the ideas out of his head as quickly as he could. He would try to write them down, but he didn't have any paper or ink, so he would use the wall and his fingertips, and he would basically write with his fingertips on the wall to the point that his fingers were bleeding and scraping and getting worn out and just looking disgusting. Richard, he's kind of going insane from all of these ideas in his head. He goes to see this Felix Garrison, the doctor that gave him the hairball in the beginning of the issue that he used to trade to Erasmus Fry. He goes to see this Felix, and he begs Felix to go to his house. He tells him there's a woman in a room at the top of his house. She is locked up in there, and he wants Felix to tell her that she can go, and that he frees her and make her go away. He begs Felix to do this, so Felix does so. Felix goes to Richard's house. He goes to the bedroom at the top there, and he knocks on the door, and he says, "Hello? Anyone here?" Richard says, "You're free to go. Hello?" And with that, Calliope was free. Eventually, Felix opened the door, and she was gone. Calliope was gone. Calliope, she visited Morpheus in his realm and thanked him for helping her. She tells him that in the old days, Morpheus would have just left her to rot there, but Morpheus has changed. Morpheus explains he no longer hates her. He has learned much in recent times. Calliope says that Morpheus should release Richard from whatever torment he has put him under. Morpheus agrees to do it, if that is what she wants. We see a sort of contrast in the way Calliope is treating her tormentor versus how Morpheus did. Calliope is willing to let this Richard go, whereas Morpheus put Alex Burgess into eternal waking in Volume 1 and left him like that. Calliope asks that maybe she could visit Morpheus again later in the dream realm. Morpheus says that that would not be a good idea. The two of them say their goodbyes. And Richard, he's sitting now, he's calmer, but without Calliope, his muse, around anymore. He says, "It's gone. I've got no more ideas anymore, no idea at all." And he will probably never be able to write a good story ever again. Issue 18, A Dream of 1,000 Cats. Now, this issue is a real trippy issue. We see a white cat. He is a domesticated cat that lives with some human owners. He escapes his house this night, though, because a well-known Siamese cat is going to be evangelizing about how to change the world. So all the cats in the city are traveling to listen to this Siamese cat speak. All the cats, they arrive at this cemetery, and the Siamese cat begins to share her story. She says that she too used to be like them. She had some human owners who would feed and play with her. But one day she took a lover, a bushy tomcat, and she got pregnant. And eventually she gave birth to many kittens. But the Siamese cat's owners were not too happy. Their cat was a purebred Blue Point Siamese cat. And these little kittens of hers that were crossbred with this tomcat are just bundles of fluff that aren't worth diddly squat. So the male human owner put the little kittens in a sack, tied the sack to a rock, and walked out to a river and threw them into the lake, drowning them. The Siamese cat, from that point on, realized that as long as she lived with humanity, her and all cats anywhere could not call themselves free. The Siamese cat, she wanted answers. Why did her human owners do this to her? So she went to sleep, and she dreamed. She was in the dreaming, and she walked through the dreaming, and she eventually arrived and met Morpheus as the Cat of Dreams. Morpheus does not just serve humans, he is the Dream Lord for all living creatures. Morpheus, as the Cat of Dreams, talks with the Siamese cat. The Siamese cat wants to understand, why did the humans take her children away from her? And why do cats live as we do now? Morpheus tells the Siamese cat to look into his eyes, and when the Siamese cat looked into Morpheus's eyes, it saw the world as it once was. Many, many years ago, cats ruled the world. They were much larger then, and the whole world was created for their pleasure, and they roamed it and took what they wanted. And humans were just tiny creatures, no larger than cats are now today. And the humans would groom the cats and feed them and pet them. And when the moon shone full, the cats would hunt the humans and eat them, for the humans were more delightful to hunt than the birds, and back then the mice were too small and insignificant for the cats to even bother with. Eventually though, one of the humans had a dream, an inspiration, and it told its fellow humans. It told them to dream. Dreams shape the world. Dreams create the world anew every night. Do not dream the world the way it is now, in thrall to our feline masters and mistresses. Dream a new world. Dream a world of human beings. Dream a world in which we are the dominant species, in which we are the kings and queens and the gods. Dream a world in which we will no longer be hunted and killed by cats. I do not know how many of us it will take, but we must dream it. And if enough of us dream it, then it will happen. Dreams shape the world. So the humans dreamed, and for a while nothing happened. But eventually, one night, enough of the humans dreamed. It did not take that many of them, 1,000 maybe. And the next day, things changed. Humans were huge and cats were tiny. Humans were the dominant species and the cats were prey to them, to the dogs, as well as prey to the humans' metal machines. The Siamese cat, after learning all of this from Morpheus, asked him, "So the humans dreamed the world into its form it is now?" And Morpheus explains, "No, the humans dreamed the world, so it always was the way it is now. There never was a world of cat ladies and cat lords. They changed the universe from the beginning of all things until the end of time." Morpheus asks the cat, "Do you understand now?" And the Siamese cat answered, Yes, I do." Morpheus replies, "Then you know what your task must be. You know the burden you must bear. Are you strong enough for it?" And the Siamese cat answered, "Yes, I hope so." The Siamese cat, now talking to all the other cats in the cemetery, tells them, "If the humans could dream it, then we, the cats, can change it back. If we believe, if we dream, if at least 1,000 of us dream, we can change the world, we can dream it anew. A world in which no cat suffers from the malice of humans, a world that we rule." The Siamese cat, ever since it learned the truth, has traveled the world to spread the good news to all the cats everywhere. And she shall keep going and spreading the word until she dies, or until at least 1,000 cats hear her words and believe them and dream them, and then they all return to paradise. The Siamese cat is done talking now, and the little white cat that we met at the beginning of this issue tells the Siamese cat that it believes her. And the Siamese cat replies, "Well, then there is hope, child." And the Siamese cat then leaves, now having finished her speech. The little white cat walks back home with an alley cat, and the two cats discuss what they just learned. The alley cat thinks that the speech was interesting, but doesn't seem like it really believes it. The little white cat, though, thinks that it felt like the truth to the Siamese cat story, or at least a truth. The little white cat asks, "So, do you think it will happen? Will enough of them dream and change the world?" And the bigger alley cat responds, "No one can persuade 1,000 cats to do anything at the same time. No, it will never happen." The little white cat returns to its home. It's in its bed and it is sleeping, and the cat's owners comment how cute the cat looks, like it's hunting in its sleep. And the little white cat then dreams. That is the end of the issue. Now, I feel this one deserves some analysis before we move on. Upon reading it on the surface level, you have to wonder, what message are we supposed to get from this? It can seem very strange. The main kind of theme explored in this story is that reality is shaped in the most literal sense by the dreams, beliefs, and expectations of people or creatures. So the cats believe that they once ruled the world. Now that may or may not be true, probably not true, but either way, that is the story the cats tell each other. And if pursuing that wish fills both the Siamese cat and the little white cat with hope and purpose, and in a way, they are happier because of it. So pursuing change you want, even if it never comes, may still be fulfilling. You may never reach the destination you want, but the journey to get there is arguably more important. Another way you could view this story is that it could be seen as an allegory for the difficulties that people face in gathering support for a movement, especially one meant to upset the status quo. It is difficult to muster the imagination for a different vision from what you see around you, and it is exponentially more difficult to get others to buy into that vision once you have it. The way that Morpheus describes the state of things as being changed so that they've always been this way could be seen as a commentary on how governments in power tend to manipulate narratives so that it seems like they've always represented what they currently represent. I think of George Orwell's 1984 or North Korea or other totalitarian governments out there. What they are perpetuating is not always true, but if everyone believes the story, then reality's not good for a whole lot. Anyway, there are many different possible interpretations to take away from this issue. Feel free to share any analysis you may have in the comments, although I'm sure some of you just thought this was a weird-ass story. Issue 19, A Midsummer's Night's Dream. This particular issue is probably one of the most celebrated in the Sandman series. In 1991, it won something called the World Fantasy Award for Best Short Story, which is a fairly prestigious award. The award is supposed to be for the best fantasy story of 10,000 words or less, published in English in the prior calendar year. Typically, comics do not win awards like this. This is more so a literary award, but Sandman won for issue 19. If you remember last volume in the Hobgadling story, we saw Morpheus in 1589, and he met William Shakespeare. Morpheus asked Shakespeare, "Would you write great plays? Create new dreams to spur the minds of men? Is that your will?" And Shakespeare said yes. Well, apparently they made some sort of deal that Shakespeare would write 2 plays for Morpheus. And the first play he wrote was A Midsummer's Night's Dream. In this issue, we are going to see it performed. This issue is set 4 years after their initial meeting, and the year is 1593. So the year is 1593. There is a plague going across England, so Shakespeare and his traveling actors troupe are staying outside of the bigger cities to avoid it, and they are traveling the countryside, putting on plays. William Shakespeare is also traveling with his son, Hamnet Shakespeare, as well. Shakespeare actually did have a son named Hamnet. William, though, is so often busy, working, writing, traveling, he doesn't get to spend that much time with his boy. Even now, when they are together, William is often preoccupied with other things and is not paying much attention to the boy. Morpheus appears in the field here and begins walking towards them. Shakespeare goes over to talk with him. Morpheus asks William, "Is it ready?" And Shakespeare says it is. It is the best thing that he has written to date. Shakespeare and his actors are going to put on a play, A Midsummer's Night's Dream, for Morpheus and for some of Morpheus's guests. And they will put on the play right here outside in this green field. Shakespeare comments to Morpheus, "This is an odd place for us to perform out here." Morpheus questions, "Odd? This place was a theater before your race came to this island." Shakespeare asks Morpheus, "Before the Normans came here?" And Morpheus replies, "No, before the humans." Shakespeare introduces Morpheus to the various actors. Shakespeare tells one of his actors that he owes this man, referring to Morpheus, a great deal. Shakespeare then tells the rest of the actors to get ready. They will be performing the play here within the hour. The actors start dressing in their clothes. In Shakespeare's time, the men played all the roles, even the female characters in the play. So it is just men here, and some of them are dressing as women. The actors finish getting ready, and now they await their audience. Morpheus tells the audience to open the door and come on over. A magical door opens in some sort of green shrubbery, and out walks various fantastical characters from the land of Fairy. There are the rulers of Fairy, Oberon of Dom Daniel and his wife Lady Titania. There is also the hobgoblin trickster known as Robin Goodfellow, aka Puck, and many other members of their fairy court. These fairy creatures used to regularly spend time in our mortal realm on Earth, but recently they have visited less often, and more so stick to their own realm now. But they are here on this day as guests of Morpheus, and all of these other fairy characters have come to watch the play as well. A lot of these characters are actually characters within the play A Midsummer's Night's Dream as well. The reason for this, supposedly, is because Morpheus wanted Shakespeare to write this play, and he instructed Shakespeare to write about all of these fairy characters so that their legend would live on. Morpheus, he greets them all and tells them to sit down. The play will begin soon. Shakespeare, who is actually playing one of the parts in the play, walks out in front of the crowd. But Shakespeare, seeing the crowd of fantastical fairy creatures, gets nervous and he freezes, and he forgets the words to his own play that he wrote himself. His son backstage actually feeds his dad the first few lines, and then Shakespeare remembers the words and continues onwards. Watching the play, Lady Titania, talking to Morpheus, tells him that his mortal author is well spoken. Some other creatures in attendance watching the play are not sure what to make of it. This big blue troll-looking creature explains to this other goat-looking humanoid one what's going on in the play and the various storyline going on. Backstage, some of the actors are talking to Shakespeare, commenting on how the audience is not human. They are full of boggarts and trolls and nixies. Shakespeare tells the actor to calm himself. They are our audience for tonight. And as the play continues going on, all the fairy creatures in attendance seem to be enjoying themselves and laughing and are enthralled with the storyline. In the play, the actor playing Puck is wearing a white mask and is reciting his lines, saying, "I am the merry wanderer of the night." And the real Puck, the real hobgoblin trickster, is watching in attendance, and he finds it kind of amusing that he is a character in this play. Lady Titania, talking with Morpheus, has taken an interest in Shakespeare's son, Hamnet. She comments how he is a beautiful child, and she wishes to meet him. Morpheus says that that will be possible. He has told Shakespeare to call an intermission at some point, so she can meet the boy then. Backstage, Hamnet, Shakespeare's son, is talking to some of the other actors. They say to Hamnet, "You must be proud of your father." Hamnet answers, "Proud, I suppose." Hamnet He rarely gets to see his dad, and when he does, Hamnet comments that his dad has been very distant the last few years. Anything that happens, he just makes stories out of it. I'm less real to him than any of the characters in his plays. My twin sister joked that if I died, he'd just write a play about it. Hamnet. All that matters to him is the stories. So the thing is, William Shakespeare, he so wanted to be this great writer, so he made this deal with Morpheus a few years earlier, and he focused so intently on his work and his artistic vision that he neglected his family, and he doesn't see what's going on with his son Hamnet right in front of him. The play continues and eventually reaches intermission. During the intermission, Shakespeare talks with King Oberon a bit. Oberon congratulates Shakespeare on his great work. One of the actors, who is a little upset that they are not being paid for this performance, asks Oberon for gold for payment. Oberon replies, "Gold? You ask Oberon of the Fae for gold? Then you must have your gold, actor." Oberon gives the actor a huge sack of gold, and the actor is elated. Meanwhile, the real Puck is talking to the actor who is playing Puck, and Puck is reading the lines of the play in the book. The real Puck seems pretty intrigued by this. The real Puck decides to knock out the actor and play himself in the second half. Morpheus, talking to Shakespeare, says, "The Fae are pleased, as am I, good Will. It is finely crafted and will last." Morpheus is satisfied. While they are talking, Lady Titania is talking to Shakespeare's son, Hamnet. She gives him a little piece of fruit, and she tells him about how fantastical her land is, how bonny dragons come when you call them, and they fly you through honeyed amber skies, and there is no night in her land, and it is forever summer's twilight. Hamnet eats the fruit that she gave him and is pretty excited with how cool her land sounds. Now, in folklorish tales, fairies have a habit of stealing children and occasionally replacing them with ill or disabled changelings. This tendency to nab unattended kids is something that may potentially end badly for this young Hamnet. The play continues, and the real Puck has decided to replace the actor playing Puck in the play, and recite his lines as well. No one seems to notice because the character wears a mask. In fact, they think that this new Puck has never played the part better. Shakespeare backstage comments how the actor playing Puck acts well tonight. He has never seen him feign a finer Puck. Lady Titania and Oberon tell Morpheus that this will have to be their last visit to this Earth. Things have changed, and Gaia no longer welcomes them as she once did. They tell Morpheus that he is welcome in their land of fairy, though. Morpheus, he may take them up on that one day. Morpheus explains why he invited them here this day. He says that during the fairies' stay on Earth over the many, many years, the fairy have afforded him much diversion and entertainment, and now that they have left for their own haunts, he wanted to repay them for all of the amusement and more. It was important to Morpheus that the mortals of this realm remember King Oberon and Queen Titania until this age is gone. King Oberon thanks Morpheus, although he says the play's contents are not exactly 100% true. Things never happened thus. Morpheus says, "Oh, but it is true. Things not need have happened to be true. Tales and dreams are the shadow truths that will endure when mere facts are dust and ashes and forgot." Lady Titania comments, "If you say so, Dream Lord, we are honored." As the play ends, Oberon tells all of the fairy creatures it is time to leave, and they all begin to walk through this little portal back to their dimension. There is a bright light, and Shakespeare and everyone is not exactly sure what is happening. Puck, though, the real Puck, he wishes to stay in Earth's realm. He says, "What, leave? When there are mortals to confiscate and vex? Go, all of you, your Puck will stay, the last hobgoblin in a dreary world, ho ho ho." Puck He then very menacingly prances onwards, reciting the closing lines of A Midsummer's Night's Dream. He says, "And as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck now to escape the serpent's tongue, we make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar call, so good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends." In the morning, Shakespeare and his crew wake up. They think maybe it was all a dream. Even Shakespeare thinks that might be the case. The one actor who Oberon gave the pouch of gold to, well, he opens the pouch and it empties and it's just a sack of yellow leaves, not gold. He feels maybe they were cheated. Shakespeare says no. They were paid in full. What other acting troupe has played to such an audience? Hamnet talks to his father and says that he has had a strange dream. He talks about Lady Titania and how she wanted to take him to a distant land. Shakespeare dismisses his son's remarks, though, and says, "Foolish fancies, boy. On the cart today." Shakespeare, he then tells the rest of the actors that they travel onwards, on to their next show. The ending text reads, Hamnet Shakespeare died in 1596, aged 11. Robin Goodfellow, or Puck, his present whereabouts are unknown. Now that is the end of the issue. The real Hamnet Shakespeare did in fact die in 1596 at aged 11. It is implied here that Lady Titania tempted Hamnet with that fruit, and by Hamnet accepting the fruit, that is what maybe led to his death in the future. Whereas if Shakespeare was watching his son more closely and listened to his son, instead of being so possessed by his work, he may have been able to maybe do something about it. Issue 20, Façade. This issue, we follow a very obscure DC character named Element Girl, also known as Urania or Rainey Blackwell. She was a character in a DC comic from the 60s called Metamorpho. She used to work as a spy for the US government for the CIA. During an assignment in Egypt, another agent named Rex Mason was exposed to the orb of Amun-Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and he gained the ability to transform into any element, and he became the superhero Metamorpho. Rainey, she volunteered herself to replicate the experiment that Rex went through, and she got exposed to Ra's powers, and she was molded into an elemental with powers identical to Metamorpho's. She called herself Element Girl. An Element Girl could transform her body into any of the elements naturally found in the human body, and shape them at her will. Element Girl worked together and started to bond with this Metamorpho on their little team. But matters were complicated with Metamorpho because he was already in a relationship with another woman. Eventually, Metamorpho severed his ties with Element Girl to salvage his relationship with this other woman. This abandonment devastated Element Girl, and she felt ostracized, and she had a fear of facing the world. Her insecurities about her appearance became overwhelming. For years since then, Element Girl endured a completely insulated existence, living on a disability pension from the government for her previous work. So we see this Element Girl now today. Uranie or Rainey Blackwell. She is in her apartment, smoking, sitting alone. She is lonely. Her only contact with the outside world really is her disability pension contact, whom she talks to once a week. Eventually, one day, Rainey's phone rings, and on the line is a woman named Della Kyriakis. They used to be co-workers years ago. Della doesn't know about Rainey's altered appearance. Della wants to meet with Rainey to talk about something. Rainey is nervous, but she decides to go meet this woman. A few days later, when it is time for them to meet, Rainey, or Element Girl, decides to craft a face for herself, so she is not so hideous looking. So using her powers, she could craft a silicate face for herself. Only problem is that it hardens and eventually falls off after about a day or so. And for her hair, she uses various metals. It looks fine as long as no one touches it. So by doing all this, she sort of prepares herself, and then she leaves. She arrives at this restaurant to see her old friend Della. Rainey, she looks pretty beautiful for now at least. Now Della, she still works for the CIA just like Rainey used to, and this Della, she's pregnant, and the father is someone else who works in the CIA, and that guy still has a wife, so it's all very complicated. Della wanted to talk to Rainey about this delicate situation because she wanted to talk with someone that actually worked in the CIA and knew the politics of the place, but wasn't still actively there. She wanted someone to confide in, basically. As they are talking, a group of deformed-looking people are walking by outside the restaurant. They have odd-sized arms, no bottom half of their body, etc. Della, looking at them through the window, makes a comment. Ugh, what if my baby's a freak like them? And Rainey comments, they're just people, they aren't freaks. And Della says, it's not like I have anything against them, they just make my skin crawl. As they are talking, Rainey's silicate face falls off into her pasta, and we see Rainey's exposed, hideous-looking face. Rainey, she runs off embarrassed, and everyone in the restaurant is just staring at her. She feels destroyed over this. Rainey runs back to her apartment and she is crying profusely. Eventually, she contemplates suicide. She doesn't want to live any longer. The only problem is she can't kill herself. She is Element Girl after all. Her body always adapts to whatever she's thinking about doing. Eventually, Rainey yells out in frustration, God damn it, how? How do I kill myself? Enter Death of the Endless. Death enters Rainey's apartment and asks her if she wants to talk. At first, Rainey is taken aback by this woman in her apartment, but eventually she calms down and they talk. Death has a very calming presence. Rainey talks about her miserable existence and how she wants to kill herself, but she doesn't know how. Her body just processes poisons. Shooting herself wouldn't do any real damage. She even contemplated sitting in ground zero at a nuclear test site. She worries though, what if she would live, and then perhaps be so radioactive that for sure no one would ever want to talk to her again. She says that she wants it to stop. She wants to die, but she can't. Death is trying to talk some sense into Rainey, get her to see the positives of her situation. She tells her that it's not that bad, Rainey. Even the metamorphae die eventually. Hey, listen, eventually everything dies. It just takes a little bit longer for you guys. But sooner or later, your morphogenic field collapses. The metaplasm dissolves and you're ready to move on. Eventually, Rainey figures out who exactly it is she's been talking to. She's talking to Death. And she is happy. She says, oh, merciful Death, you've come to me to make it stop. Death explains that she isn't actually here for Rainey. She was just passing through. One of Rainey's neighbors died recently. She heard Rainey crying, so she decided to talk with her. Death then goes into a monologue about who she is. She says, I'm not blessed or merciful, I'm just me. I've got a job to do and I do it. Listen, even as we're talking, I'm there for an old and young, and innocent and guilty, those who die together and those who die alone. I'm in cars and boats and planes, in hospitals and forests and abattoirs. For some folks, death is a release, and for others, death is an abomination, a terrible thing. But in the end, I'm there for all of them. Rainey in West Africa, a small village is being massacred by mercenaries, in pay of their own government, and I'm there. In the furthest reaches of a distant galaxy, a planet is being ripped apart by internal stresses. The planet was the home of many crystal intelligences, calm and fine and beautiful, and I am there as well. I'm in all those places, and I'm also here talking to you. But I'm not your death, at least not yet. When the first living thing existed, I was there, waiting. When the last living thing dies, my job will be finished. I'll put the chairs on the tables, turn out the lights, and lock the universe behind me when I leave. Rainey says, I don't think I understand all that, but are you saying you won't help me? Is that what you're saying? That I've got another 2,000 years of being a freak? 2,000 years of hell? Death tells her, you make your own hell, Rainey. When Death says that, you make your own hell, what she means is that Rainey could look at the bright side of this situation. She has all these powers and whatnot, and she can make the most of her life. But instead, she wallows in self-pity in this apartment alone. Death tells her that she will help Rainey to die if that's what she wants to do. She tells Rainey that her powers come from Ra, the sun god, and if she wants to die, she needs to talk to him, ask him to remove her gift of immortality. Rainey says that Ra is in Egypt, she can't go to him. But Death tells Rainey that he's a sun god, he's the sun. He's out there right now, see? Talk to him before he sets, but ask politely. So Rainey, she walks over to her window, and she starts talking to the sun. She feels awkward about it, like it's silly, but she says, Ra? Hello, Ra? He spoke to me, did you hear that? He actually spoke to me. Please, sir, I don't want to be me. Thank you for making me special, but I don't want to be special. I just want it to stop. Can you make me normal again, please? Look at you. You want me to look at you? But you mustn't look at the sun. Well, okay. And Rainey, she looks directly at the sun, and she says, I never realized before the sun, it's just a mask too. And the face behind it, it's beautiful. Eventually, Rainey's prayer gets answered, and she finally dies, leaving behind a disintegrating husk of a body and a face wreathed with an expression of pure joy. And that is the end of the issue. To help with my coverage of this series, I've been reading a book called The Sandman Companion by Hy Bender, where he interviews Neil Gaiman about the book, and I wanted to share some interesting behind-the-scenes things I learned about this particular issue here. So in the companion book, Neil Gaiman explains he had this idea of an immortal character that wanted to die but couldn't. So Neil remembered that this Element Girl character existed and thought that she would be perfect for the role. This Element Girl character is really obscure. Neil says that she was completely forgotten about by DC. DC published a book in the 80s called Who's Who in the DC Universe, and even though it included all of these obscure characters, Element Girl was completely left out of it. So Neil, he phoned up his editor at the time, Karen Berger, and he asked her if he was allowed to kill off Element Girl. And Karen replied, Who? Who is that? Is that someone from the Legion of Superheroes? Karen, she checked in with DC's continuity people, and eventually Neil Gaiman got permission to kill the character off if he wanted to. So that is the background of why this Element Girl was used in the story. Another interesting thing in the companion book is that the author asked Neil Gaiman about some criticism that people have with this particular story. Some people interpret it as being about a beautiful woman that wants to kill herself because she is no longer pretty. So Neil explains that that was not his intention. He answers that the story isn't about feminine beauty, it could just as easily have been about a male character. What it's really about is someone whose life has just shrunk. You want to say to that person, but you're amazingly cool and powerful. You can do anything, and yet you're living in a one-room flat, scared to go out. But from Rainey's perspective, she's stuck in a body that's no longer even remotely human, and she's facing the prospect of spending the next 10,000 years smoking cigarettes in a room full of empty faces. And she doesn't see how to get free of that, except by dying. Is the suicide ending problematic? Quite possibly. Do I, as a person, think Rainey's solution was the correct one? No, I don't. But none of that bothers me because I feel the ending works in the context of the story. I feel it's true to itself. So I thought that was a really interesting insight from Neil about this ending here. Alright, that is the end of Volume 3. All right, so that was Dream Country. Let me go through my thoughts on these various issues. So the first one on Calliope, the Muse, I thought was very fun and amusing. I thought it was cool seeing this writer's career take off, how he becomes a big shot and he wants to all of a sudden write plays and write movies, and he gets nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. So I thought that was fun, but you also have some of those horror elements mixed in, and we see Morpheus come in and sort of save the day in the end, and the writer is sort of going crazy. It was a good one shot, so I thought that was very good. Now, the second issue on the cats was that was something. That was really out there. I read a lot of interpretations on the internet of what people sort of took out of that story, what the deeper meaning behind it is. And I think it's a very interesting one to analyze, though it's easy to dismiss as just being a stupid story about cats that doesn't really go anywhere. But I think it was very fascinating. You really see Neil Gaiman going beyond the comic medium when you have a story like that, really doing something different that nobody else really does. So I don't know, it was a fascinating issue. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on that one. Now, the Shakespeare issue, I have to be honest, I am not a huge Shakespeare guy. I'm not really into Shakespeare. In high school, when we had to read various plays for English class, I didn't even read the plays. I just read the Cliff Note summaries of the plays and studied that, and that's how I passed my tests. Also, I think my favorite movie adaptation of a Shakespeare play would be the 2006 classic She's the Man with Amanda Bynes. Mwah! That's an adaptation of the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night, if you didn't know. But I thought that issue was pretty good. I thought it was fun seeing Midsummer's Night's Dream being performed and all these fantastical creatures and watching them in the audience. It was very amusing. Although because I'm not like a Shakespeare nut, it's not my favorite issue, but it was still pretty fun. And the final issue in this volume had to do with this woman, Element Girl, and her being really lonely and wanting to kill herself. And we get to see Death, and it's always fun to spend some time with Death in this book and have their little interaction there. So I thought that was a pretty solid issue as well. I'm going to give this volume an 8 out of 10. It's not my favorite volume, but I really think there's some interesting things going on in here. All right, thank you all for watching. I'll be back in the future with Batman: The Long Halloween, and then I will return with more Sandman.